gauge steel. That is 0.15 in diameter, and it is a light gauge steel rather than aluminum, you can see, right? And it's just perfect for this. It's a little bit thicker than a thick coat hanger. I have used coat hangers before, but this is ideal. It really holds its shape. Okay, so, and then basically you need to get the diameter correct here, and then you're gonna create this little hook. So when we do that, this particular roll happens to come in almost exactly the right diameter, so I don't have to do too much. Okay, so I'm overlapping there by probably two inches or so. Okay. So now we've got this. If I measure that, then we've got basically 8.5 inches, which is what we're going for. Yep, that's perfect. All right, so if that's our overlap, then I'm gonna bend this one back and the other one the other way so that we can make a hook. All right, so again, nothing like a good pair of linesman pliers for sure. And it's worth spending a little extra, like a Klein or something like that would be a good version of this. All right, so I'm gonna bend this. Okay. And then basically at the same spot here where I'm bending, this one needs to bend at that same spot. Like so. And then I'm not too worried about them being a little loose. The most important thing is that they don't come apart, right? So I'm going to clamp these down like that. A little bit of play, but once we get the taping going, it's gonna be really solid. All right, so there's our starting circle. So what we wanna do is start wrapping, and I usually start with duct tape or actual duck tape. And any of that stuff is gonna work fine. So it really sticks to the wire, but it's kind of flat and odd shaped, right? That way we don't get too much twisting going on. Okay, so there's our first layer. I'm just gonna squish it all down now. Make sure it's sticking to that ring. Great, perfection. All right, next, what I've done to get from this diameter to this basic shape is cut up a towel. Right, so this was bathroom towel. Probably needed a new life anyway. And I just cut it into strips. So basically the length of the towel longer is better. So you have less connecting points, right? And it's just with a pair of scissors, it's a little uneven. Maybe this is 1.5 inches in width, 2 inches max. Okay. So as you can see, I'm basically overlapping it maybe halfway from the previous wrap down, making it pretty snug. You want to not have these too soft when you're done. You want them fairly firm. So now the diameter we're gonna aim for, that is right at 2 inches. So somewhere around 2 inches, right? And right now this is probably 1.25 inches or so. Then when you get it to that thickness, we're gonna dig in with the duct tape here. And we're gonna start wrapping the whole thing. Then you end up with this, right? Which is pretty much a formed ring before you wrap it with your suede or whatever material you're gonna use, which we'll talk about in a sec. But at this point, now there's a teeny bit of shaping we wanna do. I happen to have some 12 gauge electrical wire, and I just cut a circle out, and I think it's gonna even be better because it gives a real firm edge here, and then once I wrap it with the duct tape, then it'll make that nice angle. And you can see it on this guy here, right? This is the classic 30-year-old ring where there's a bit of a dip down here from a high spot. So I can tell what's the top and the bottom, right? That's just flattened out over time, but a normal rounded inner edge. Here you can see there's a ridge, then it drops down to where the bottom of the tableau sits in the ring. Okay, so we want that. All right, so if there's an area you find that's a little thinner than the other areas, you can just spend a little more time wrapping that, getting it about the same thickness. But this is pretty good. Now, at this point, we're ready to look at the covering, the final layer. It's important to note in advance what you're going to use to cover it with, because if you've got a really thick material, like a canvas, or a thick denim, or if you're going to use like either a vegan or a animal hide, like a goat skin or a sheep skin or something like that, then that's going to be a little thicker, especially since when you wrap it, it's going to cover half of the previous wrap. So you've almost got a double layer. So if we take a look at our rings here, you can see at the moment, this guy is a little thinner, and it's also not quite as thick on the inside as well. So that's good. Because what I'm going to use today is this sheepskin I've got here. But I know a lot of people are going to want to go for something a little prettier. In general, though, keep in mind that suede is going to last longer, right? So, for example, instead of wearing, this is actually kind of almost polished. You can see where the shell's been kind of put in there again and again and again. And if this was regular fabric, that would probably just wear away. Whereas the leather products actually kind of get more firm, and so that will last longer. So keep that in mind. But you can use, this is a cotton cloth. You could use, I've got a nice Japanese, pretty nice, a little bit harder material. Again, probably mostly cotton. And you could use, like I said, denim or something a little harder. But today we'll use the sheepskin, and let's get into that. Okay, so what we want here is a reasonable straight line to create these strips. So if it's not incredibly thick leather, a little X-Acto knife or a carpet knife like this is going to work fine. We can eyeball this or if you want to get persnickety, then you can draw your lines and cut them out that way. But I'm going to just use my eye here. 2-inch wide line. So now what we're left with are a bunch of these fairly short pieces, right? And in order to avoid having a bunch of tape marks where we're connecting these together, well, I'll give you an example. This ring here, I actually finished these rings in Tucson, Arizona with my dear friends Camilo and Cynthia Scherer. And she's a great seamstress, for one thing. And when we got this, it was a pretty big sheepskin. And with that, we got longer continuous strips out of it. So that was a good thing right there. But then in order to not have this issue of connecting them along the way, she said, well, why don't I sew it? So we just took the ends of the strips and she just ran it quickly through her sewing machine, and that worked great. So then we had one long strip. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'll be right back. All right, so the sewing is done. And that is the connections here. So as opposed to a whole bunch of little pieces, we've got one continuous length. And this one I just measured is 40 feet long. So I'm hoping I can get 2 rings out of this. That would be awesome. So let's do that together and see what we get. I'm gonna cut it so that the ring, this is the bottom here, right? You can tell because there's a ridge right here. So I'm gonna let this be on the, I don't know, the inside of the bottom there, just so that the tabla is not brushing up against that particular spot. And then I'm just gonna, for now, secure it with just a little bit of this. Then I can cover that over, replace it later. All right, so let's get this taut. Go. And there we have it.